Good to
Hi.
see you. Good to see you. Just a little bit. So Gina has won the accolade of honorable mention on in this Creatin Contest, and the name of her piece is the Dollhouse Glass Hot Shop. And I got a chance to meet Gina a little bit offline before we got to here, and I'm just amazed, not only by your work but also your background. So maybe we could talk a little bit first about your background and talk a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do? And that kind of thing. And then let's talk about your work.
Great. Yeah, so I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but lived in California for about the past decade. And for my day job, I work at a museum. And I also am an adjunct professor of glass, most recently at the California College of the Arts. So that's why I ended up making a hot shop for this project. And this is my third time entering this competition.
Yeah.
And my third time as a winner.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So you have a background in art, you're a glass blower in real life, and you were inspired to create this piece based on, you know, what you do in the crafting world. But now, so you were inspired to create this studio space or this hot shop. Now, that is based on a real space, is that right?
Yeah, it's loosely based on a real space. This is, kind of common. My husband is also a glass artist, and so we belong to a community of glass artists. And so I was trying to think of spaces in the area that I live in Oakland, California. There are a couple of shops that I took inspiration from.
That's awesome. That is just awesome. All right, so let's try and bring it up, because it's not working for me. Wait, let's go, hold on. Let's do, yeah, of course it's not working right now. All right, we're gonna enable media, that's probably why. All right, hang in. Technology, go figure. All right, can you guys see the slide? Hold on. Hold on. Don't touch that dial. Okay. All right, let's see if it works now. Okay, good. All right, so we do have the glass shop up and running. So let's talk a little bit about it while it's running. So the inspiration was the actual live studio space. And you started with an unfinished kit, like all of the Creatin Contest pieces do, correct?
Yes.
So let's talk about this piece. And so how did you start? What did you start with?
Yeah, so this kit, I really liked this kit this year because it was really simple. It was a 3-walled kit. It was 2 walls and a base. So I added a base. So I added more walls on, obviously, and a front to the shop. There's the video starting.
Yeah.
And so I created a box-like space because I was thinking of an industrial space in the city of Oakland, where I do most of my work and blowing glass.
Yeah.
And so it comes apart. I left it so I could take it apart for photographing, because that's one of the most important parts of this competition, is that you have to photograph the work well. So it actually can come apart in sections.
Does that door open and close, the garage door?
The garage door doesn't. I had a version where it did slide up and down, but it was a little bit clunky. So it is fixed.
Yeah.
But the doors open. In the interior of the space, all of the equipment, the doors open and close.
Yeah. Let's talk about the equipment, because I think one of the most amazing parts of this piece, not only the whole composition of it, are the individual, like, not machines, what would you call them? There are 3 really well-crafted machines, right?
Yeah. So the furnace, that's what you're seeing right now in the back corner there. So that's where you would heat glass up. If you've ever seen glass blowing demonstrations, that's on all the time. And so that's where you would gather glass from. And then what you're seeing right now is called a glory hole. And that's where you reheat. Yep, technical term.
Right.
We are in no shortage of fun terms in the glass world.
Great.
But so that is a reheating furnace. So that's where you'd reheat the glass, because when glass drops below about 1800 degrees, you can't use it or you can't manipulate it anymore with your hands. And then the other piece of equipment in the back is the annealer, which is the kiln that brings it from about 900 degrees down to room temperature slowly.
Wow.
And it's a lot like a ceramic kiln, if you've ever seen a ceramic kiln.
So what are some of the materials you used to craft this piece?
Yeah, so this piece is primarily made out of wood. So the kit itself is like composite board wood, and then there's a little bit of plywood. Most of the equipment is made from balsa wood, basswood, and paper for the most part. There is some polymer clay. The gas tanks that you see are polymer clay. There's a little, I did a little bit of metal work as well. Yeah, so there's a little bit of soldered. Yep.
Oh, so you solder also?
Yeah. So
is movable?
What?
Is everything movable?
It is. Yeah. I have most of it affixed down because I have to move this piece around. So a lot of museum wax.
Yeah.
But everything is movable. On the glory hole, there's a yoke in front of it. So that's what you'd rest your pipe that would have glass on the end of it. Yeah. And so that is movable as well. It's on little wheels right there. You can see on a track.
So how long did it take you to make this piece?
So it took about 7 months. You have 1 year to make the piece. And just timing wise and other projects that I was working on, I worked on it for about 7 months.
7 months. And what was your favorite part about working on this? And what do you think was the most challenging part?
I think my favorite part and the most challenging are the exact same thing. Making the glory hole and the furnace. That's what I started with. When I've entered this competition before, I've always made one piece to like get the feel for what I want to do before I really break into the competition kit. So those two I made first. And the furnace is actually made out of a cereal box. And you can actually see the interior of the cereal box. That's part of what that red light is reflecting.
Yeah.
And it was a real challenge to get the scale right and to make it look correct because it's such a recognizable thing to people in my industry.
So it was important that you met expectations within your own art group or your art discipline. Wow.
Absolutely. And I shared it with my husband and with friends along the way and asked them, you know, is this correct? Is this how this would be? And tweaked things to, you know, what I thought would be more believable.
Right. So, I mean, I'm struck by the glass, obviously. Is there any way you can pick up one of those pieces of glass and share a closer view of it?
Yes.
Just some of your glass work.
Okay.
And just, if you can, just talk for a few minutes about what it takes to make a miniature glass.
Yeah. So this one's a little bit boring because it's clear, but it's a pretty good representation of a small blown object. So these are actually not made in a hot shop. These are made on a glass torch. And so I have a glass torch at my house. It runs on oxygen and propane. And so I start out with a hollow tube and I blow a bubble into the hollow tube and I shape it. And much like I would in a hot shop, I would start out with a bubble horizontal. I break it off and attach what's called a punty to the other end. And then I finish off the front of the piece.
Yeah.
So similar process, just tiny.
Can you go really in front of the camera and hold your hand behind it because it's hard to see. Yeah, beautiful, just beautiful. Love that.
So I made most of the glass myself, but there are a few pieces that I didn't make. There are a few pieces that I purchased from miniaturist.com. And then there are also some pieces that friends made. So there's a little pink bunny that's in there that's from a friend who is from South Korea originally, but most recently lives in Australia.
Yeah.
And just finished up a PhD program. We went to graduate school together in New York State.
Awesome. So what is it? what is it that you love in miniatures? I mean, yeah, obviously it's glass. You love to blow glass. Like, what else have you loved to like? What have you
Yeah.
discovered maybe out of this?
The first time that I ever entered this competition, I actually made a miniature print shop that was based on a 19th century newspaper printing press.
Yeah.
And so that was the 2016 competition. I made that. And so I like reproducing artistic spaces. I did another one that I had also won an honorable mention for a few years later that was a natural philosopher study, which was kind of art adjacent, art historian. I like making spaces that are not typical to dollhouses.
Yeah.
You wouldn't normally think of as a dollhouse.
Awesome. Awesome. That is just great. That's fantastic. All right. Let's see if we could take a question or two. And just so you guys know, if you want to see more of Gina's work, we just plopped in her Instagram handle into the chat box. So look for her there on Instagram. You can see more of her work, including the print shop. Is the print shop up there?
It is. Yep.
Beautiful. And yeah, so let's take a question if you had. I know there was someone asked outside. What are the outside walls made of?
Yeah, absolutely. So the outside walls are made of a combination of roofing, little tiles that I had from another project left over, and then textured cardboard. Wow. So kind of like egg crates, but this was from like a shipping container. So I just cut them to a similar size. It's glued, it's sanded, and then it's painted with a couple of layers of patina.
Fantastic. Awesome. All right. Terrific. Gina, thank you so much for sharing your work. Congratulations on your win. Honorable mention. Your work is beautiful. And I think we might have to do a Meet the Miniaturist in the future and have you share your talents blowing glass, because I think that would be amazing.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. So we're going to move on. I'm going to say goodbye to your video, Gina. Thank you. And I'm going to reset the PowerPoint slide. So hang out while I do that. And also while I bring up our next winner. Hold on. All right, hold on. We're gonna bring up Meghan. Meghan is our next guest. So hold on while technology is trying to be cooperative. Hold on. All right, let's get Meghan. Meghan, I'm going to ask you to start your video and ask you to unmute, and then we will say hello. Hey, hi, hello. Meghan.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
All right, so hold on, because I want to pull up the presentation. So hang in for 1 second, guys, while we do that. And then you'll have to let me know. Everyone's going to have to let me know if you can see my screen. There we are. Just give us a yes, hello, if you can see it, guys.
I can see it.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, Meghan, thank you for joining. You hail from the beautiful state of Maine.
I do.
You are, I love the name Boos. I love that. You are a first-time entry winner. And, you know, I wanted to mention the fact that, you know, this contest is really about inspiring everyone at all levels. So there were wins for everybody. This is just about getting out there, being inspired, being motivated, and to create. So, but you're a first-time winner, that's a great accomplishment. And congratulations.
Thank you.
So with that, you created, I love cemeteries. That's close to dear. It's dear to my heart because I'm fascinated by the architecture. I'm fascinated by, you know, all of that, you know, spookiness. So tell us a little bit about your exposure to miniatures, your background, and how you got to this place where you entered this contest.
Sure. So I live in Maine. I've been in Maine pretty much my whole life. And I went to college for art and was originally going to be an art teacher, and then decided I didn't like children. So instead, I pursued just a regular art degree from Goddard College. And then I ended up working a bunch of random jobs and started working at a bank. And now I work in IT. So my world is computers and applications. But I started really doing miniatures I've done them my whole life, but sort of like in the closet. I've been a closet case miniaturist for a long time. And a couple of years ago, I was like, you know what? I really like miniatures and I want to get better at them. So I started really paying attention to scale and techniques and just researching anything I could about minis so that I could start getting better at it. And I love cemeteries so much. And when the contest came around last year, I was like, you know what, this is the year that I need to enter it. I need to give this a go. And I had never actually made a complete scene before. So this contest really gave me an opportunity to try to do a complete executed vision.
Yeah, we're gonna start the video in a second and share the work. When we were chatting before this, you had brought up an interesting thing, which is that you mentioned it just now, that you consider yourself this closet miniaturist. You didn't even know this whole community out there existed, and then you found it, and you were like, wow. Talk a little bit about that. You thought no one, like you, at some point you thought that you were like the only one?
So yeah, I've seen a lot of the dollhouse magazines that are out there, but they were always this abstract thing that there was this fantastical community of miniaturists living out there, but I didn't know anybody in this area. There's not really any shows around here. I mean, there is the Guild School nearby, but I didn't even know it existed. Please forgive me. Yeah. But I've never been to a miniature show, so I was just kind of creating miniatures in a vacuum and going to craft fairs and trying to connect with other people who liked miniatures. But there's a big stigma around miniatures up here where I think a lot of people think they're just toys or they're for kids. And so once I joined Instagram a little over 2 years ago and realized there was this whole community of people that really value the art that goes into miniatures, it was just very enlightening for me.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, I love that. And I think that's common. I think that there are so many people out there that just don't know that this whole community exists. And, part of what I do is about getting to them. So yeah. And bringing people like you together with them to inspire. And I think, I think your work is inspiring. I think your story is inspiring. So let's talk a little bit about your work. I just pulled up the video, so it is playing. Talk a little bit about, I know you're into the whole spooky thing. What inspired you to make this specific piece?
Yeah, so I was thinking when I knew I was going to join the contest, I wanted to play to my strengths, which are a lot of stonework and textures and antique washes and things of that nature. But I was really intimidated about this idea of how do I fill a whole space with something that tells a story. So I spend a lot of time in cemeteries doing family genealogy research. And I mean, there's so many cemeteries in Maine and New England that I've visited, and they're just beautiful, peaceful places. So when I was thinking of what can I put in this space, a cemetery was one of the top 3 things that came to mind. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to go for it.
Now, do you have real people in mind on those plaques? I'm looking at the plaques. And
No, but so these are all just some names that I've gathered over time, but I did research a lot of this is kind of morbid, but some of the pandemics throughout history that have impacted New England, and also some major events. There are some dates in here that represent, there was actually a shipwreck off of Portland, Maine, and then there was a cholera outbreak. And so I was really just trying to make sure that those family plaques really told a story when you looked at them.
Yeah, and that's what I love about seeing some of this work, is seeing that there's story behind the story. I mean, I love beautiful miniatures and well-crafted miniatures, but I think for me, to hear the story behind it and the thinking behind it, and to know that there is more to it, is just thrilling. And I think you've done a beautiful job.
Thank you.
Let's talk about some of the techniques. We already have a question about the techniques. I want to know about the brick. We have a question about the stained glass. So yeah, let's talk about some of the techniques.
Sure. So the brick that's actually the walls, which are supposed to represent the outside of a church, that is from a heavy corrugated PC packing material. So I saw some in the storeroom when they were unpacking computers and was like, I need that stack of cardboard. So it's similar to egg crate, only has a lot more texture to it. Those are all hand cut. There's a couple thousand of them. I spent a few months just on brick duty. And then the stained glass is actually lead golfer's tape and then gallery glass inside of it. So that's a technique I've seen a lot of other miniaturists use. And I thought I'd give it a whirl.
What's gallery glass?
It's just like a liquid paint that you can apply. It comes almost in those like little puff paint applicator things. And so when you first put it on, it's a solid color, and then it'll actually dry clear, which is really nice.
That's a great tip. And how about some of the mossing, weathering? I see that going on.
Yes. So I am
Yeah.
completely obsessed with things that are old and mossy and wet. So this is a lot of acrylic washes. So I'll take different types of acrylic paint and water them down really thin, and then just keep applying them in thin layers, letting it dry, and then doing another thin layer on top to get that technique.
Awesome. I mean, one of my favorite parts, I mean, there's so many favorite parts, but I love the red door, and the choice of the red door is just, it's just so striking. I mean, I see really, tell me about the hardware, what materials.
Yeah, so I'm actually, people who know me from Instagram, I'm obsessed with hardware and any excuse to use it. But in this case, I actually didn't have any hardware that was going to work. So the door handle is a piece of wood, and then I stole some of the chipboard sort of shapes from the top of a chipboard fence and applied that to the top and bottom of the handle to kind of make it look a little more ornate. And then I used real miniature brass nails across the door and then on the door handle to kind of just zhuzh it up a little.
It's just wonderful. It really is wonderful. I'm just like amazed. Wow. All right. And then there's the mausoleum, of course, right in the middle.
Yes, so there's two mausoleums. There's the New March and then the Fellows. Those are made from foam core, which is one of my go-to materials, and basswood and balsa and some half round and quarter round strip wood that I use. And then gesso the whole thing, sand it within an inch of its life, and then just start doing a whole bunch of acrylic washes for aging.
It's fantastic. So the whole piece is not that weighty, would you say?
No, actually, this is probably only a couple pounds,
Yeah.
maybe about 2 or 3 pounds.
Wow, it looks heavy. All right. So, and would you have a question about the fence? What is the fence made of?
The fence is actually a chipboard fence kit that I got from Alpha Stamps.
Beautiful. So how long did it take you?
This actually probably, I started pre-planning for it as soon as we hit 2020. So I probably worked on it for about 10 months, but a good 3 months of that was just cutting bricks. I'm not joking.
I would have brought in an intern. I'm just
Yeah. Farm that work out to someone. Yeah.
That is just amazing. All right. So what kind of advice would you give to, let's say, someone who wants to enter, maybe they're a newbie, maybe they want to try their hand at this. What kind of advice would you give? Because this is about inspiring folks to just get to it. It's okay. Try.
Yeah. So probably the biggest piece of advice I would say is find something that you're passionate about and that you're really interested in. That's key, because if you're not excited about the project, you're not going to finish it.
Yeah.
Once I ordered the kit and I had it in my house, I was like, okay, now it's real and I need to focus on this. And then the other thing is, use a technique that you're already comfortable with to sort of build off of, but then force yourself to kind of explore some other techniques that maybe you haven't done before. So for me, I had never done any landscaping or flower kits. So that was new this time around.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. Really good advice. And I think being disciplined is probably a big part of it. Like, getting it done, getting yourself to that place to be creative and sit and do work and, cutting bricks for 3 months.
Yeah.
That's probably, that is a skill in and of itself. I want to say, to be disciplined, but the work is great. It's really great to see. I think let's take a couple of questions. We do have some great comments, amazing work, so many different techniques. You had mentioned that you grew up in a crafting family, right? Because the question is, where did you learn a lot of this?
So when I was younger, my mom made sure I always had access to art materials, and I just spent a lot of time making things. So it wasn't, if I wanted a dollhouse or if I wanted something that was miniature, it was, here are the supplies and go and make it. So a lot of trial and error and just making things until they looked like something that was recognizable.
Yeah. Awesome. And then the final question, how did you do the print on the plaques?
That actually, I did those in PowerPoint and then digitally manipulated them a little bit and printed them out on cardstock. And then in the corner of the plaques are real brass nails for some three-dimensional effect.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your work. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your tips, your techniques. This has been fantastic. So we're going to put your Instagram handle also in the chat box so folks can find you. Hopefully you're open to answering any of the questions if they have them offline.
Yes, definitely.
But thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna say goodbye to Meghan and we're going to shut down the video. And we are going to bring on our grand prize winner, Rebecca Reckin. I'm gonna ask her to unmute too. And I'm also, she should be up in a second. And there she is. How are you, Rebecca?
I'm good, thank you.
Good to see you. I'm just pulling up your, I'm just gonna pull up the video file. So hang in while I do that, because it's not easy. It's not easy to do 3 things at once, but I'm gonna try. But thank you for being patient. And I'm going to share my screen. So your video is up. We haven't started yet because we want to first get to know Rebecca and say hello and thank her for being here and learn about her. Okay, so you're a grand prize winner. Congratulations. That's pretty awesome. Your work is, and now I had to learn this. I had to go do research, but it is Hic sunt dracones, which means it's Latin for here be dragons. It is an awesome piece. It's just beautiful work. You hail from Auckland, New Zealand, so far away. You are only the 2nd international winner of this contest. So congratulations again. Beautiful work. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got up to this point of making this beautiful piece.
Thank you, first of all, thank you. And I hope that my accent, you know, I hope you all understand me because it's a little bit different. My daughter and I got into miniatures probably about 2014. As a kid growing up, I'd make a lot of things for my Barbie dolls and a bit like Meghan, we were a very crafty family. But then we got into miniatures. My daughter didn't enjoy it, but I did. I found this love. And I think what I love the most about miniatures is that it's not just one art form or craft form.
Yeah.
You can do so much. Like I love working with wood. I've just bought myself a mini potter's wheel so I can learn to work with clay. I mean, Gina working with glass. I mean, that's just so cool. Yeah. So that's what I love the most about miniatures.
Awesome. So this is the first time you've entered this contest, and obviously your first time win. What brought you to, and I know that you live nearby a very famous place in the world that was used to as the town to film Lord of the Rings. I want to say flies, but I never. So is that a little bit of the inspiration for this piece? And let's talk a little bit about this piece.
When I was making the decision to go ahead and enter the contest, I had been thinking about doing a fantasy build for a bit of time. My daughter's partner was living with us and he loves dragons. So I was thinking about dragons. And when I saw this, I don't know what it was, but immediately it was sort of like, oh, yes, derelict cottage with a dragon. Of course, why not? I do live close to Hobbiton, which is where The Hobbit was filmed. And of course, Lord of the Rings was filmed in New Zealand as well.
Right.
So the mill at Hobbiton was definitely an inspiration because it's exactly the same. It's got the rock bottom and then the wattle and daub top.
Okay. Keep going.
And because I had sort of like a basement, I knew that I needed to bring the landscaping up around. And that was quite tricky because I've never done landscaping before. So that was interesting, shall we say, and it was a massive learning curve.
Yeah. I'm just working on bringing up the presentation and getting your piece up. And I'm going to share the screen so we can get it to run. So you guys should see it. And it is running. Got it? Good. So this is a pretty extensive piece. There is a lot going on here. As you mentioned, there are lots of different techniques that you use. There's an amazing story behind this. Let's talk about the story. Let's talk about the dragon.
Well, that was the first dragon I made. That was Bramble. He's a little forest dragon, but he was just a little bit too little. He took me about 24 hours to make.
Yeah.
Mostly polymer clay. And then I went on to make the dragon who's in there, and he's Thistle, and he's much, much bigger. Yeah. Took a little less time because I knew what I was doing. But that was one of the first things I made, because I thought if I can't make a dragon, there's no point carrying on with that idea. So the story is a dragon has crashed through the roof, not quite sure why, but there you go. He's crashed through the roof and decided to make his home in the cellar of this house. And he's got all his hoard, sound asleep quite happily. And then obviously the people that were living there either left very quickly or got eaten.
Yeah. So tons of different materials. Talk a little bit about some of the materials you used.
I used paper clay for the first time, and I've got Rick Pierce's book and followed some of his techniques.
Yeah.
And paper clay, I love working with paper clay, so I'll definitely be doing that again.
Yeah.
I use polymer clay. The base is a rigid foam. The rock work is all a rigid foam as well, which I've carved into and then painted. Most of the landscaping is made with rigid foam that I've then sort of shaped. The stones around the creek, they're all made with sculptor mold. It's what I can get here. It's a paper mache type material. And then, of course, resin for the water. That was terrible. And my friends will tell you I was almost ready to dump the whole thing at that point. It took me about a month to get the stream right. I had to pull it out completely twice and redo it.
We're just on that staircase. The staircase up is probably one of my favorite parts. Just to have the mold, the mossy grass, wrapped around it. It's just fantastic.
That was actually really fun to do, because I just put strips of PVA glue onto baking paper, and then I used a static grass applicator. Oh, wow. And it stuck to the strips of glue. And then when it was dry, all I needed to do was lift off the strips of glue and shove them down in between the little paving stones, which are also made with sculptor mold.
Yeah. Some of the details on this piece are amazing. I mean, right now we're looking at
see the bone.
The collar. Is it the collar from the cow? What was that?
No, that's a rib cage. That one. That was
So there are little details like this that go along with the story. Like there's a cowbell. There's a cow. Is it a cowbell? Yeah.
It's the cow. Yeah, that's right. That's around the back. We haven't got to there yet. Around up here.
Because the story is there was a family living there, and then the dragon popped in and destroyed everything and everyone. Yeah.
So on that corner there that you can see now, there's the little chain and the little bell attached to the collar, and a couple of bones.
That's awesome.
Dragons are carnivores.
Right. I learned a lot from your piece and about the dragons. They're just amazing. Just amazing. All right. So how long did this take you?
About 8 months.
8 months. So it's pretty common. This takes folks a while. And I thought it was interesting what you said about how you started with the dragon and you were like, let me make sure I can do that. We need to take a moment to look at this door, because your door is awesome also. But my observation is you started also with your dragon, and Gina she made one of her tools, her kiln, or one of her tools, and she's like, if that can't be right, then I can't do the rest, which I think is really interesting. So what advice, how would you advise someone who might be starting out doing something like this? What would you advise?
I think the best advice that I can give is that if you don't truly love your theme, you're not going to follow through. If I didn't really truly love what I was doing here, I would have given up way before I got to the stream.
Yeah.
I mean, the trees were hard. The dragons were hard.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. I mean, you chose a very ambitious project. How much take me through your process. Did you start with sketches? How did you start?
No, I don't sketch anything. I'm very visual visual thinker, and so I had a very, very clear image in my mind. I always print out inspiration pictures and I put them around my work area, so that just for things like you know, how I was going to do the wall, how I wanted the wall to look, that sort of thing, how a derelict cottage looked, how the grass grows through a derelict cottage. So, but the overall image I was very, very clear on. I added the stream. I wasn't going to do that first off, but you know, my ambition got the better of me.
Well, it paid off.
Well, I like to challenge myself, and it was a challenge.
Yeah. Well, it comes through. I mean, it comes through. So what's sort of next for you? Are you thinking about the next contest already? Where is your head at?
Well, at the moment, I'm just building a little Finnish house for a Finnish doll that I have. And I have to say I'm not very good at the regular doll houses.
Yeah.
I'm really struggling at the moment with electrical, even though this has got electrical.
Yeah.
So yes, I am definitely doing this year's competition. Hopefully the contest kit will get to me within the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Postage is ridiculously slow at the moment.
Yeah.
And yes, I have my idea already, and yes, I am working towards it.
Beautiful.
And very excited by it.
Yeah, and you were generous that you posted on your Instagram some previews along the way. Is that right? Before you revealed. Are you planning to do the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm. I mean, this took 8 months of my work, you know, life, and you're wanting to share what you make, you're wanting to share what you create, and yet you're not wanting to give away the whole game, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, absolutely, I will be sharing again.
Yeah.
But I'll just try and be a little bit strategic about it.
Yeah. Why do you feel like, I don't know, you're going to be a little bit more holding it dearer?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I tend to be a bit of a chatterbox, and I tend to, you know, tell people things and let people know things. So I doubt I'll be able to keep it.
Yeah. Well, it is a competition at the end of the day. So, you know,
it is.
Compete.
Yeah.
All right. So folks can find you on your Instagram. We're going to post your Instagram account there. Do you also, you don't sell your work?
No, I haven't. No, not. I say not yet. I have given a few things away, but you know what it's like as an artist. You put so much time and energy, and there's no way you're going to ever get that back.
Right, right.
One day, you know, these things may go to friends or to people who really love them, but I at this point anyway, I don't make anything to sell.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's all a personal decision, whether you're an artist or a crafter, or you're making it for yourself or making it for others. Why don't we, let's take a couple of questions. Jill wants to know what the bird cage was made of. I wanted to stop and talk about the bird cage. It's also one of my favorite. What is that made of? And what did you use to make the fireplace glow?
Okay, so the bird cage isn't mine. That was one of the few things that I actually bought. And that is by an artisan called Libby Stroud.
Oh.
And she's Basket Case Miniatures on Etsy.
Ah.
She's Australian. And yeah, absolutely love that. I did make little bones to go in there. But yeah, that was hers. And I'm not sure what it's made out of. It's really amazing. She does incredible work.
Wow.
And sorry, what was the other thing?
The fireplace? The glow.
I've just got lights up underneath.
They don't flicker. Do they flicker? No.
No, they don't. That's more just to highlight the gold and the hoard and the jewels.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, the gold hoard. It's just awesome. Well, that's beautiful work. Thank you for sharing your work with us. Thank you for chatting with us today. Thank you for being inspiring. This has just been truly wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and stop your video while we finish up and chat with folks as we wrap this Meet the Miniaturist up. I do want to tell you that, you know, the 28th annual Creatin Contest has started. It's happening now. We're going to put in the chat box how you can go and link if you want to become involved in this contest, if you want to go ahead and get yourself a kit and get creating. This is a fun thing to do, and it's inspirational, and it gets you, it gets you at your workstation, and it gets you involved in miniatures. It's crazy how much fun you can have with it. So we're going to put the information in the chat box for the next Creatin Contest, and as well as all the contest rules. It's happening now. And winners will be announced at the end of the year, early next year. So you have time to get it done. And I hope you've been inspired by the winners of the Creatin Contest from this time around. It has been just amazing chatting with everybody. I do want to mention that if you want to follow me, we're going to put my social media in, and look for a couple of Meet the Miniaturists happening over the next several weeks. Next week, which is April 4th, is Steve Putnam from Steve Putnam Designs. We're going to have him on. And then look for a very special Tips and Techniques Meet the Miniaturist, also sponsored by HBS miniatures.com in the next month. So look for lots of updates, lots of new Meet the Miniaturist, lots of activities and fun. I hope you enjoyed this Meet the Miniaturist. I had a blast. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us on this Sunday. I want to thank hbsminiatures.com for sponsoring this. This is just a thrill. A thrill. And everybody have a great day. All right.